Hi, I'm Julie McCluskie, Director of Communications and Community Engagement for Summit School District. And we're going to be talking today about our master facilities planning process and building Vision 2020. We're excited today to talk about the future of Summit Schools and our best hopes for kids and what we can do both with our facilities and with our classroom instruction. Hi, I'm Julie McCluskie, Director of Communications and Community Engagement, and I'm joined today by two very special guests who are going to help us talk about the big project going on in Summit Schools right now, our master facilities planning process in our hopes of building Vision 2020. So I'm joined by Woody Bates, our Manager of Facilities, and Desi Navarro, our Owner's Representative and Project Manager for a lot of school construction that'll be starting here this next summer. But we'll get to that. First, I think it's important that we start with what is building Vision 2020. About 2 years ago, the district embarked on a strategic planning process. We worked with community members, staff, teachers, even our kids played a role in really defining what we want for all students to make sure they're college and career ready at the point they leave Summit Schools. And as part of that, we started a year ago a master facilities planning process. And Desi, maybe we can start just by asking you that question. I'm sure you work with school districts all over the state, and many school districts go through this process. What is it, and why is it important?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Julie. So I'll try and make it brief. Master planning is basically kind of setting up a roadmap. It's a way to address problems that your district has or things that your district wants to do differently, and ways you can do that with your buildings or your facilities. So nice. The master plan really takes that 50,000 foot view of here are a few things that we want to accomplish over the next couple of years, whether it's growth, that has to do with just building deficiencies, things like site circulation, things that you want to make better, and it basically lays it out of here are some ideas globally that we can do to make these things better over a specific period of time. And you do a master plan and you keep it high level so that you don't jump into a project or you try and solve something too soon without thinking about the big picture, and then at the end of the day it's one of those things where it's, man, we could have done it this way, or we should have done it this way, or we could have accounted for this or that.
Well, I really appreciate that. Having been working on this for over a year now, we've done a fairly deep dive into the condition of every building and taking the 30,000 foot view to really make sure that every school is maximized, that we're doing what we can with the things, not only from the outside, but the inside as well, right? Yep. So master facilities, the process itself looks at the guts of your building as well as all of those amenities and niceties, aesthetics on the outside, right?
Exactly. Master plan, it's in that word master. It's everything that you can think of. You want to think big picture again, make sure you don't leave anybody or anything out.
And what's your sense about the state of Colorado? How many districts how often do they undergo this process, and are there a lot of districts doing that now?
Yeah, actually there are quite a few districts doing this now. Just if you go back to the bond numbers from November, man, how much money was on the ballot across Colorado. There are definitely a lot of schools in need of some upgrades, facility improvements, additions to handle the capacity and the growth, and just deteriorating buildings. The buildings after a certain year, they just don't want to work that well anymore. So there's a lot of districts that have been doing it, that are currently doing it, and are planning to do it here in the near future. So you guys are one of many.
Yay. Yeah, and proud. We're proud, one of many, right? We got so much work done. Woody, you have been with the district for quite a few years now, and
almost 10.
All right, yeah. Decade, and done a great job making sure that our facilities are, running in the best condition that they can, taking care of the grounds, taking care of the classrooms. As far as the process itself, what have we done over the last year to inspect our buildings and assess the condition and make sure that we're in safe, secure, and really the best learning environments for kids?
Good question. So really the assessment process doesn't start or stop. So it's something that has been ongoing for years and something that I have been keeping up with on an assessment list for every school really since I've been here. Just tracking the deficiencies, where we know we have problems, roof leaks, stuff like that, so that going forward, we're always tracking. We always have an account of where those needs are in the schools. So we brought on Wold Architects and Engineers a little more than a year ago to really help with the assessment process and to validate the list that I had going in the school district. Really, since 2012 was really when I started the current list going.
And what are some of the things that are on that list, Woody? What are some of the things that...
It honestly, it starts under the ground, so all the pipes and the drainage and the plumbing, to the electrical, to the foundation, the bricks and mortar, the windows, the doors, the HVAC, I mean, the roof, everything that composes a building is on that list.
And so we have six elementary schools. Two in Breckenridge, one in Frisco, Summit Cove, Dillon Valley, and then Silverthorne. We have one middle school, one high school, and we have Snowy Peaks High School that is also in the middle school building. What was your, what's the condition of our buildings? How good a shape are we in, and what's next on the list?
So, they're kind of all over the board. It's a bit of a mixed bag with the age and condition of our buildings. From Silverthorne being about 12 years old to the middle school having been remodeled about 10 years ago, to Breckenridge Elementary, which is as old as I am, built in 1971. Wow. So obviously, we have the full range and spectrum of conditions within those facilities. Also taking into account that pretty much every single one of our buildings has had different additions or remodels as well as upgrades throughout the years, so those kind of track differently than the original building. So we use something in assessing school facilities called the Facilities Condition Index, which is really just a ratio to calculate what it would cost to upgrade all the deficiencies in a building versus building that same building again. So we've seen facilities condition indexes for our buildings, and I don't remember the low, but I think it was probably Silverthorne somewhere in the teens, maybe 15 or 16%, up to close to the 70s or in the 70s for Breckenridge Elementary.
And at what point should a district start thinking about replacing a school? How high should that FCI be when those conversations should occur? So
somewhere around 60% is when you start to think about, is it worth investing this money in this facility, or is it worth actually looking at potentially building a new facility?
So if we went through that process, the Facility Conditions Index process, and that really took all of last spring. We held community meetings, we shared our findings with community members, and we built a list of every deficiency in every building. And I know we prioritize that list, and I do think it's important to understand how we prioritize. So can you share a little bit about what some of the deficiencies are that might fall into priority ones, our most urgent priorities, and then maybe even on down the list?
So if you think about the highest priority items being those types of items that might close a school, whether it's for a day or for a couple hours or for a week, those are the highest priority items. So if we're talking about serious HVAC issues, serious problems with the boiler, pumps for that boiler, potentially a roof situation where we're getting continuous leaks that are just, we can't keep up. We're always shoveling snow to prevent those, and it costs a lot of money. So those become the higher priority items that we're gonna list on that priority list.
And I like how you reference school operations. So something that impacts school operations, or I would assume school safety or school security.
Correct.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of items on that list that the maintenance department has dealt with frequently. And so we know, oh, this air handler or this whatever piece of equipment it is, we're constantly working on that piece of equipment. It should just be replaced.
Okay.
And so that's something that will make it on the list as well.
So in the spring, we completed that list, and we came up with roughly, there's more on that list, isn't there? We came up with a $68.9 million bond project
Bond
list.
amount, yep.
But that also included something else, something that we found through our master planning process that we haven't really talked about, and that is student enrollment and student growth. We are working on expanding both Summit Middle School and Summit High School. And those expansions are being done because we know we've got a lot of kids coming up the pipeline who will be coming into those schools, and we simply just don't have enough classrooms. We don't have enough space to be able to teach. So $68.9 million on the bond list, and we are ever so grateful that our Summit County voters supported our ask, and now we're into the bigger process. And I'd love to talk more about what's next,
Sure.
and what we're calling the design process, and then we get to start breaking ground, and then we get to start taking care of the fun stuff.
Yeah.
That's it, Desi, the fun stuff. But I do want to mention something that has also happened for us alongside this very close look at our buildings and making sure we have everything we need. And that's something we're calling phase 2 of our master planning process. And it's really dealing with the north end of our community in the south. Woody, could you share a little bit about some of the things we're looking at now in this phase 2, this more of a 3 to 5 year process when it comes to our elementary schools?
Yeah, so in looking at when we were discussing the FCIs, so the two buildings that seem to have the highest FCI or the most efficiencies in them, and that would cost the most amount of money to kind of bring up to that newer standard, would be Breckenridge and Dillon Valley.
Breckenridge Elementary and Dillon Valley
Correct.
Elementary, okay.
Yes. And so looking at those FCIs and looking at the age of those schools, and also how they function in serving students, some questions started coming up about what do we do with these schools for the future? Does it make sense to put a lot of money into these buildings? Or should we consider potentially a new building somewhere else, or remodeling the existing facilities as they are? That also kind of spurred off some side conversations, and it led to some other conversations around our programming and capacities in those buildings, and how some of our programming is actually feeding the large capacities that we see at Dillon Valley, for instance, as well as some questions around our vacant land. The school district owns some land parcels throughout the county, and so those questions came up about, well, what do we do with our vacant land?
Right.
And so with all of those, the programming, the vacant land, the age of those buildings, it generated a lot of questions for the school district that we didn't necessarily know how to answer right away. And so we wanted to get input from the community around what is the best scenario for us going forward.
Excellent description. I think that's going to deserve its own Summit spotlight here very soon, right?
Excellent.
We'll talk.
We'll be back.
We will be back. We're going to take a break right now and come back with a deeper dive into the next steps with our Building Vision 2020. We're going to talk about the design process, how we are including community in the next steps of that phase, and then what our community can expect around buildings, when those will be happening, and what they will be seeing here in their own backyard.